Hey guys, back again with another video, another games I've been playing recently video. I've been playing a lot, and I don't know, I really do need to get back into reviews, but I don't know, there's maybe one of these games that I would have liked to have reviewed, but I figure I might as well just talk about a bunch of games in one video, kind of let you guys know what I've been up to, and see what you guys have been playing as well. There's a lot of stuff here. We'll start off with a game that I think I mentioned in my last video. I did like a brief first impressions on it. And that's Astral Chain for the Switch. And I don't have the physical copy with me because I traded it in. I basically did like a satisfaction exchange that you can do at EB Games. You can kind of like exchange a game for another game within 7 days if you like don't like it or finish it. I have like a 10-day period. So I finished Astral Chain in less than 10 days. And I might get some hate for this because this game, I was pretty positive in my last video about it, but I only played like an hour or something like that. And the reviews for this game have been extremely glowing. Like, people seem to love this game. Now, I wouldn't say I hated the game. I don't think Astral Chain is a bad game. I think it's a thoroughly mediocre game and extremely disappointing coming from Platinum Games. This game got a lot worse after that first hour. It's a weird game though because the pacing is just horrendous in this game. Where the first the game basically has like 11 chapters. There's 12. There's like a post game of sorts where you do a bunch of like combat missions, but I'd say like the first maybe like 70% of the game is terrible and just has like this horrendous pacing to it. And then the last few chapters are actually really good where the action really ramps up and the game has like these amazing set piece moments and some really cool boss fights. It feels more like a Platinum game later. But one of the things I really hate about this game is the structure of it, where basically every mission is divided up into these like mini sections. You'll have like an investigation sequence. You'll have this sequence where you're in the astral plane, essentially. And all these sections look identical to one another. And basically you're doing this really annoying platforming in these sections, and then usually it will be you have a few combat arena type areas and then a boss at the end. The bosses are typically probably the highlight of this game, and in fact the combat in general, I don't really have much to complain about with the combat in this game. I don't think it's as deep as some of Platinum's previous games, like Bayonetta or even Wonderful 101 really, but I think it's really cool. There is a lot of variety to it. I really did love using using your, what do they call them again? I already forget what they call them. People like to compare them to the stands from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but I really liked using them, and all the different moves that you have at your disposal are really cool. It's cool how a lot of them give you like different movement options and things like that, and kind of the interplay between them I thought was really good. But other than the combat, everything else about this game is fucking terrible. Like, I hate it. These investigation sequences where you're like basically searching for a needle in a haystack, making sure you're talking to every NPC in these like big maze-like environments before you can move on, where the game just completely slows down to a crawl and just forces you through these boring, dull, dry investigation sequences. And the story in this game is garbage. It's anime nonsense. It's terrible right from the beginning all the way up until the end. Though it does give some good excuses for like some crazy boss fights later. The platforming in this game is terrible, where you kind of have to use I wish I remember what the fuck they call these things. The monster, the guys that you have with you. But you basically have it on a chain, and you have to like use the analog stick to kind of like push it towards a platform, and then you press like the A button, and then your character will kind of jump. The problem is the camera is always terrible and always obstructs your view of all these platforms, and you'll have the reticle like directly on the platform you want to jump to. And so many times when I was playing this game, I would jump to it and I would fall. I would fall immediately before I even get to the platform. The hit detection was just terrible in this game. You'd constantly run into walls that you shouldn't have run into. It's really problematic at the end of the game. Right before the final boss, there's this really long platforming section, and basically it's so fast that you actually have to know where the platforms are going to come from ahead of time. So your first time through, you have to die. There's no fucking way you'll get through this section the first time without dying. It's literally impossible, because if you don't know where that platform is coming from, what direction, you're not going to have enough time to get your reticle over there and jump. before it basically goes away, and then you just fall and have to do it all over again. It was so frustrating. I hated these astral plane sequences. When it wasn't platforming, it was like these really rudimentary and tedious puzzles that you had to do, like a lot of crate pushing puzzles. The side quests in this game are insulting. I just ignored them all after a certain point. We're talking like carrying boxes, and you have to like balance them with motion controls as you get from point A to point B. Just awful, tedious, like boring shit. Like some of the worst side quests I've seen in a game. And it kind of plays into the ranking system too in this game, where to get the best ranks, you actually have to do all these extra little side missions throughout the main missions. And man, what a waste of time they are. At a certain point, I was just like, when I got to like the third box carrying side quest, I was just like, fuck this shit. This is fucking horrible. Oh man, the side quests in this game are terrible. But it's mainly the structure of this game that I hate. The investigation sequences are so they're such a pace killer. But I won't lie, the game does get a little bit better towards the end. They actually start to get rid of those sequences and a lot of like the walk and talk sequences, and they just basically give you a bunch of fights and cool boss battles and set piece moments. So I did appreciate that. I think the game does get a little better towards the end. I think the worst part of this game is like file 6 through 8, I want to say. Actually, honestly, probably like 4 through 8. It is all really bad. But I mean, the combat in this game is so good that I don't know, and the music's really good too. That I didn't exactly hate the game. I just think it's really mediocre and suffers from extreme pacing issues. I think it would have been much better if they cut out all the fluff. This is like a 20-hour game that really should be 10 hours at most, like a lot of Platinum's previous games. But yeah, I don't know where all the praise comes from for this game. I think it's extremely overrated. So yeah, I basically traded it in pretty quick because I don't want to own the game, and I put it towards a much better game. This is one of my favorite games of the year, and it's kind of a shame that apparently it's not selling well at all. And that's Control. It's also for Xbox One and PC. Apparently it looks amazing on PC if you have like the great PC to run it. Wow, this game actually kind of blew me away. I did not expect this game to be as good as it is. So it's by Remedy. They've always been one of my favorite developers. I haven't played Quantum Break yet, but the Max Payne games are classics. And I really liked Alan Wake as well. I know a lot of people aren't so hot on that game. I actually really loved that game. And this is the best game, I think. I think this is even better than the Max Payne games. Now, I don't think the story is as good as here in this game. I think that can be argued, though. Because Max Payne, I just like the film noir setup that those games go for. And I think it nails that completely. More so than any other game I've played, other than maybe like LA Noire. But the gameplay, I think, is much better in this game. So, this game, so it's more like a supernatural thriller, essentially. Where your character Jesse is kind of like the director of this bureau of, I think they basically like research like supernatural like entities and things like that. It's like this secretive agency that kind of like investigates like the paranormal and things like that. And one of the best things about this game is the world building. I've not seen a game that uses collectibles so well. I was excited to find every single collectible in this game. Anytime I would see a new collectible, I was like excited to see what it was, because all of them add to this world and what this agency is basically. The more collectibles that you get, the more you kind of understand a little bit what's going on here, and it adds so much to this game's universe. And I don't really want to spoil things, but it's kind of a shared universe with other things. We'll just leave it at that. Which all of those little references too, I thought were really cool. But it's also got like a Dave Lynch type thing going on, where it can be very confusing at times. And the ending is really crazy. It leaves a lot of questions. It's definitely a pretty ambiguous game in a lot of ways, but it's so great at building atmosphere. And again, with these collectibles, it just adds to the universe. One of my favorite things in this game is these dead letters, essentially. So they have this whole department in this game where they collect letters from people all across the world that have like these paranormal experiences or perceived paranormal experiences. Like some of these letters might talk about someone like having like these weird visions or people talking to them. and telling them the future and things like that. And there's so much variety to these dead letters. I thought that was such an interesting concept, that this agency would collect these letters from people to kind of investigate more. Really cool. I like the main story in this game. I thought was a little confusing at times, and it's a little, I don't know, it's a little over the top for me at times. And I can't say that I fully understand everything that happened in this game, but I think it does such a good job at building this universe, and the atmosphere is just so crazy in this game that I did really enjoy like the characters and generally what was going on here. Really cool side quests too. The side quests in this game are amazing. Not too many of them, but again, they add so much to the world here, and there's even like totally new bosses that you'd completely miss if you don't do all the optional content here. And I went and got the platinum in this game because I just loved every second of it. And then I guess we should get into the combat. Combat is so fucking good in this game. Oh my god. So it's a third-person shooter like their other games. It seems very similar to Quantum Break, where you have a lot of like these psi powers essentially. So one of the most powerful ones is the launch ability, where you can basically take any part of the environment and chuck it at enemies. And you have like kind of a psi meter. You can't just constantly keep using these abilities. You get other abilities later. You get like the shield as well. And then you get basically your standard weapon, a selection of weapons that you can kind of upgrade throughout the game. You start off with this pistol that is one of my favorite pistols in games. I love the pistol. I used it from the beginning of the game all the way up until the end. Now, I thought, for the most part, like, I was kind of experimenting with all the weapons, and I felt like none of them were quite as good as the pistol. But as I got later in the game and experimented a little more, I got better with the other weapons. I started to kind of understand the strengths of them. There's one weapon that kind of creates this explosion, essentially, when you charge it up. And I thought that was very useful against enemies that have, like, a lot of shields. So the weapons variety is very good. It's just there's certain weapons that seem weak at first, and you kind of have to upgrade them a bit to get them more powerful. So my pistol was fully upgraded fairly early into the game, and I felt like it was a lot more powerful than a lot of these other guns that I had. But once I started upgrading the other ones, it became a lot more powerful, like the machine gun type pistol. So yeah, you collect materials that you're kind of upgrading your weapons with. You have your standard skill tree. That stuff's kind of standard. It is cool though how it rewards a side quest completion, because anytime you do a side quest or a main quest, you get ability points to kind of upgrade your skill tree. If you're playing this game, I would recommend upgrading the launch ability. It's probably the most overpowered ability in the game. It does crazy damage later in the game. But you also get a cool dodge as well. And then there's a late game ability that I don't really want to spoil, but the way it changes movement in this game and the way it kind of interacts with the environments, the way you kind of interact with the environments with this movement ability is really fucking cool, and it adds this whole new dimension to the combat. So the combat is basically a lot of like running around. You don't want to be standing in one spot in this game. You always want to be moving. Sort of reminds me of Doom 2016 a little bit in that way, because the enemies are going to be chucking things at you as well. So you really want to be moving, dodging projectiles, and using your dodge to kind of get out of the way, taking cover when you can. The health and ammo in this game is very weird as well. So you don't have infinite ammo. You have infinite ammo rather, but you have to wait till, like, when you run out of ammo, your weapon has to charge for your full clip to come back. And there's some strategy here where if you have just one bullet left, you can wait a bit and then it will charge faster than if you completely run out of ammo. Then you're a little vulnerable for a while. So you got to kind of get into cover. So it's cool. It almost reminds me of like a health system. Like the ammo in this game, it sort of plays out like a health system in a lot of games, where your health will kind of recharge if you stay still or not get shot at for a little bit. So the ammo kind of works like that, which is interesting. I've not seen many games, if at all, like any games actually do that. So I thought that was really cool. The health system, it's just your general health bar, but health pickups will kind of drop from enemies when you kill them. So that kind of encourages you to kind of get in the fray a little bit. So often for these later battles, I'd be killing enemies and I'd be low on health, and the health drops are kind of all in the middle there, and there might be enemies all around you. So you kind of have to think like, okay, so do I want to maybe stay back and try to risk getting shot one more time and dying, or do I want to go out there and try to get those health pickups? So you always got to be thinking about that. And the combat just has this great flow to it. It just feels fantastic. The guns feel great. There's this amazing weight to them. When you shoot enemies, like there's this great feedback to them, especially when they get hit and when they die. There's not like a ton of enemy variety, but I think there's enough to keep things interesting, especially later towards the end of the game. So yeah, the combat, it was fun from the very beginning and just got better and better, and I never got tired of it. It was fun all the way throughout. The gameplay is also a little bit different in the sense that this game's a Metroidvania. A Metroidvania light. It's not like super crazy. You'll get key cards that basically unlock other parts of this bureau essentially. So you'll have to do some backtracking. You get this map that can kind of be a little cumbersome, but I didn't think it was too bad. You get plenty of fast travel points, so the backtracking never feels too tedious. I do overall like the kind of structure that they have with this game. I really enjoyed kind of backtracking through the environments and finding side quests naturally and finding new NPCs to talk to and things like that. There's little like repeatable side missions that you can find throughout the game that give you good materials for rewards, which I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, it's I love this game. I don't know. I loved it pretty much the entire way through. It's like the perfect length too. It's like 15 hours doing all the side quests and completing the main quest. And then the last thing I'll mention, it looks amazing. The game looks incredible. I love the environment design here. The things they do with atmosphere in this game is incredible. I have to mention what was that place called? It's almost like a hall or a maze. It was what was the name of it? Something maze. There's a maze in this game essentially. And it's one of my favorite set piece moments I've played in any game. It is just phenomenal. What they do with the environment and in that maze part, what they do with visuals is insane. I've never seen anything like it before. It was such a cool, memorable moment that I'm always going to remember. Oh my god, it was incredible. But yeah, great visuals. The music was really moody. The game is just really moody in general. The only thing bad I'd say is that the frame rate. Even on a PS4 Pro, the frame rate got kind of bad, especially towards the end of the game in pretty intense firefights. But they did a patch that I think fixed it for the most part. I've heard the base PS4 is a little off. The performance is not the greatest, but I think they have fixed it for the most part. So yeah. Man, this game, it really surprised me. I think this is one of the best games of the year, much better than Astral Chain. Please, if you can, please find a way to play this. It's already been discounted already because I think it's not sold very well, which is such a shame because, fuck man, I think this is just an incredible game. It's one of the best third-person shooters I've played in years. Absolutely amazing. Loved Control. Next, we'll go with a digital game. There's a digital game I played just briefly. I think it's called Sayonara Wild Hearts. So it's basically, think of like, it reminds me of Rez, I guess. It's a music game where you're kind of like on rails, and each song is essentially a different stage where you're doing different things. Mostly it's just basically using the analog stick to control your character and pick up these like icons or pickups essentially. And then doing like some quick time events here and there. You might be riding a motorcycle in one level or just kind of on a skateboard the next. It gets really crazy towards the end, and it's one of those cool games that just really does a great job at matching visuals with music. And then some of the songs and lyrics are like these long 5-minute stages. It's got a lot of spectacle to it, and it's got this great art style to it. It's very short. It might only take you an hour and a half to finish, but the game's cheap. I think it was like $17 Canadian, so it's not too much US. A lot of people have been praising this game, and with good reason. It's a very fun, enjoyable, like if maybe it's like a slight game. You know, it's not. I didn't think it was anything like amazing, though. Some of the later stages actually kind of blew my mind a little bit with like just how like over the top they were with the spectacle. It did remind me of Rez in a lot of ways. So if you like a lot of like these simple music visual type experiences, I think it's definitely worth checking out. I think it's one of the more interesting like indie games I've played this year. I don't know. I wouldn't consider it like this incredible game or anything, but I think it's well worth checking out if it seems like your kind of thing. Look up gameplay of it. It's not the most it's not the most complicated game. It's a fairly simplistic game, but the music is just really, really strong in it. And just how the visuals kind of go with the music is just really cool. So yeah, worth checking out. I really enjoyed Sayonara Wild Hearts. One of the other games I played was Jack 2, PS2 classic on PS4. And I don't know why I played it. I knew I was going to hate this game. Everything I'd heard about this game I knew I was going to hate it. It seems like a game that's just not for me, like, at all. I like Jak and Daxter. I like the first Jak and Daxter game. I don't think it's on the level of like Mario 64 or Banjo Kazooie or other like or some other 3D platforms, but I think it's a very good one of those kind of games. And Jak 2 is nothing like the first game. They just completely threw everything out the window. But Jak 2 is an interesting game. It's a game from a certain time period. You do have to remember when Jak 2 came out, Grand Theft Auto 3 came out not too long before this, and every game was trying to be like Grand Theft Auto 3. Every game was taking inspiration from Grand Theft Auto 3. I mean, to be honest, Grand Theft Auto 3 might just be the most revolutionary game of all time. I'm not even kidding about that. The impact that game has had is absolutely insane. So Jak 2, what they did with Jak 2, they looked at Grand Theft Auto 3 and it's like, we got to do everything that game's doing. That's what's popular. We got to do everything that game is doing. But I don't think they really understood what made Grand Theft Auto 3 good. Grand Theft Auto 3 was great because you had this massive open world, but you had a bunch of interesting, fun things to do in it. And this game, you've got none of that. This world is filled with races, I guess. It's okay, so it's got like this pretty big open world where you've got all these flying vehicles going around, and it looks good. I like the art design in this game. The music's quite good as well, but it's completely empty. All there is just basically pedestrians and vehicles flying around. There's nothing other than that. And trying to get from mission to mission, it's got that Grand Theft Auto 3 structure where you're going from mission to mission. You got to travel by vehicle back and forth constantly. But there's nothing to do in between. There's no music to listen to. It's just not fun getting from place to place. And you're constantly running into things because it's fucking impossible not to. There's always things in your way, constantly. You're always hitting into things. You're always causing the alert. Luckily, when the alert comes up, you can still dodge the police or whatever pretty easily. The mission design in this game is just, it's not a platformer anymore. You're either doing these really awkward shooting sections because the shooting in this game is just extremely awkward. It just does not play well at all. You have some maybe minor platforming sometimes, but it's nothing to write home about. And then you have an insane amount of vehicle sequences, a race, a hoverboard, getting points like a Tony Hawk game, getting to a certain place in a time limit on a vehicle. It's endless vehicle shit in this game. Jak 2 so desperately wants to doesn't want to be a platformer whatsoever. It's variety for the sake of variety, and it's just none of it is fun. It's not even really variety though. Really, most of this game might as well be a fucking racing game. It's with this horrendous empty open world. They also went for this because Grand Theft Auto 3 I guess was maybe edgy. They went for this edgy style in this game. Jak talks now and he's always super angry and pissed off. And I do like some of the humor they bring to that. They do kind of comment on it, especially Daxter, which is kind of funny. But I don't know. For the story, from what I saw, it was just basically you're running errands for people the entire game from what I've seen. I got maybe halfway through this game. I want to say the checkpoint system is terrible too. It's completely random. Sometimes the checkpoints are generous and sometimes they're way too unforgiving, making you do these massive sections all over again when you die, which is easy to die. This game's surprisingly difficult, actually. There's also a really terrible part in the beginning where this tank is chasing you and you're kind of running towards. We're not running towards the screen. You're kind of running in the opposite direction, but it's impossible to see what's coming up and what you can kind of jump to and things like that. And it controls terribly. The camera's terrible, so that really pissed me off. But I got halfway through it before I gave up. The vehicle stuff was just driving me insane. It's very unforgiving, the races in this game too. It's just rubber band AI as well, just constantly. But yeah, no, I couldn't handle it anymore. I had to stop playing this. It's honestly, it's pretty much a failure in every conceivable way. It's such a confused game. It's such a confused game that's chasing after trends the entire time without trying to come up with its own identity. It has an identity crisis. It really does, and it's so it's so obvious. Like, it's wants so desperately to steal from Grand Theft Auto 3. Apparently, Jack 3 kind of leans heavily into the same stuff this game does, but does a much better job at it. So maybe I'll play that eventually, but I think Jack 2 is probably one of the most disappointing sequels of all time. Just because, it was the first game was this fun, breezy, well-designed platformer, and then they just got rid of all of that. Just threw it all away and just completely changed everything with... but I don't know, it's weird, because I'm of two minds, because I understand why they did. Grand Theft Auto 3 was huge. It sold millions of copies. Well, of course, every game was doing this at the time. But that's enough of Jack 2. I don't know. Some people defend this game. I don't know. I just do not care for it. I think it's Naughty Dog's worst game. I think this is even worse than you know me. I shit on the Uncharted games a lot. This is way worse than any of those games. Far worse. So, anyways, that's Jack 2. Not worth playing at all. Let's move on to a more positive experience. Cosmic Star Heroine. This is actually a limited run game. They did a limited run it was a couple of years ago, I think. A game I always really wanted to play. I've had it for a long time. For whatever reason, I just didn't really play it. What a surprise this game is. This game is awesome. It's an indie game done by, I'm pretty sure Zeboy Games is an American team. There's not too many people. It's mostly one guy doing the development on this game. It's in the style of a old school JRPG. I want to say it definitely has some Chrono Trigger inspirations. The graphics are fairly similar to someone like Chrono Trigger, but I think they were going for more of like a Sega CD look to this game, like Lunar. I think Lunar is probably the closest thing, especially with some of the cutscenes in this game. It's like CD style cutscenes, similar to what you'd see in Lunar and a lot of these Sega CD RPGs like Popful Mail and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of the style they were going for, but gameplay wise it definitely takes a lot from Chrono Trigger. So this is like a JRPG styled game that's maybe 15 hours at most, and that's doing everything. I got the Platinum Trophy in this game. It's so brisk. It's so well paced. It's so good at not wasting your time with tedious bullshit. It's actually kind of insane how well paced this game is. It cuts out a lot of unnecessary, boring, tedious bullshit from a lot of these old JRPGs. And I love JRPGs. You know me. I have a soft spot for them. I tend to be able to get over a lot of like some of the bad stuff in old JRPGs, like random encounters and just a lot of actions being useless. And this game it feels like they looked at old JRPGs and were like, okay, what are some of the shitty things about these games we can get rid of? What are some of the things that needed improvement that we can improve on? And what are the good things from these JRPGs? And let's just do all that. So right off the bat, the story and the characters in this game are nothing special. It's a fairly typical save the world type storyline. It is. I do like the sci-fi slant that this game has. You do get your own spaceship. You go to these different planets. But it's not really the highlight of the game. To me, the highlight of the game is the combat system. The combat system is fucking incredible in this game. It's one of the most smartly designed combat systems I've seen. And the cool thing with it is the game is... It's weird. There's 4 difficulties, so there's a lot to choose from. I think the hardest difficulty is way too hard. Even the first battle took me multiple attempts to get through. The 3rd difficulty is the one I played on, and it's fairly difficult throughout, but towards the end of the game it does get a little bit easier, maybe too easy. Although I think that's just because I found some character combinations that were kind of broken. So this combat system is cool in that way, where when you actually like understand it and kind of play with like character interactions and the different abilities, you kind of break the game in some ways. But it's a turn-based system. Before I get into that, no random encounters in this game. This game is like Chrono Trigger, where you'll see the enemies on the screen, you run into them, and then you get into the fight. You can even dodge them sometimes. And there's no random encounters. If you want to level up more, you can actually do like this VR simulation where it kind of repeats the last battle that you did, and you still get experience. So again, a smart design decision, a way to get rid of random encounters but still have that option for you to grind. Amazing, absolutely amazing. And we'll get to more smart design decisions in this game because it's just completely filled with them. But the spell system is turn-based. You've got your turn order at the top right. And you've got, each character has different abilities. You can have 4 characters at once. And basically each ability has like a cooldown essentially where you can only use it once. before you have to defend. And defend action in this game will actually recharge your abilities. So you can't use those abilities until you defend. And then obviously defend is also going to defend against a certain amount of damage. So right there, an immediate, amazing design decision. So yeah, they make the defend option this actual useful option that you're going to use in combat. Every other RPG I've ever played, defend is this useless thing that you never want to do. It never helps you. It's always a complete waste of a turn. I think the 7th Saga is the only RPG I've played where defend, you actually have to do it to succeed. And all these abilities have different things that you can do. Some of them can cause status effects. Obviously, some have different elemental damage. There's an insane amount of variety to these abilities, and you can only have a certain amount of abilities equipped at any point. When you level up, you gain new abilities, and you can go to the options menu and kind of switch which characters have different abilities. And a lot of these abilities have this amazing synergy with other characters. Other characters are able to buff other characters. Other characters are able to make other characters' attacks stronger. Even the defend ability in this game can be swapped out. Some defend abilities might heal your whole party for a little bit of health when you use it. Others might give you some bonus damage. Tons of amazing abilities. I always loved getting a new character in this game. There's a lot of characters in this game, but it's so much fun experimenting with them because it's cool to see what abilities you have, and it's cool to kind of come up with your ultimate party composition to kind of see which characters play off of each other. The equipment system is really cool in this game too, where you have your standard weapons that each character have, and they give you an uptick in stats, but they have different abilities. The cool thing is the shield item though. The shield in this game basically has different abilities depending on what shield it is, and the more you use that shield, the more it's going to get upgraded and you unlock more abilities. And that was really cool. So often I found these like shields that have these amazing abilities, but the defense might not be so high. It might have really low defense. But ultimately, it didn't really matter because some of the abilities just had such amazing synergy with other characters. So this was a lot of the fun for me, was just kind of like seeing what equipment worked best with what characters had the best synergy, and kind of messing around with all these abilities. Status effects are extremely useful in this game. Very useful. Just certain enemy types have different weaknesses to status effects. Charm is incredibly useful in this game. You have all these amazing abilities that do like damage over time that I thought were really helpful in this game. The way death works in this game is really cool as well, where when a character dies, they're not dead immediately. They'll have negative health. And you can either try to get a heal in on your turn, or before that character's turn comes up, or you can do a damage dealing attack to kind of deal damage to an enemy and a last hurrah, basically. When battles are over, all your health kind of regenerates for the next battle, so there's no busy work in between battles making sure your party members are healed up. And basically, it kind of cuts out that tedium. When you lose a battle, you can immediately retry. You're not brought back to your previous checkpoint. You can save whenever you want, anywhere you want. It's just, oh man, like it's such a awesome battle system, and there's so much tactical depth to it, and it never wastes your time. The enemies aren't damage sponges or anything like that. It's just, the bosses are amazing. They're so well designed. This battle system is one of the best battle systems I've seen in a game like this. I wish the game around it was a little better. Other than that, it's kind of, going to towns, solving their problems, talking to NPCs to kind of progress the storyline. The dungeons are nothing to write home about, but at the same time, they don't have any of these annoying puzzles. And I appreciate that. Probably more than... I'd rather have these dungeons being straightforward corridors that may be a little boring than filled with annoying puzzles. So it's a plus in my book. This is a great game. It's awesome. If you like JRPGs, you owe it to yourself to play this game. And it sucks that I feel like JRPGs are not going to have like... I don't know, a lot of JRPGs I'm going to see are going to be missing some of the stuff that this game has. It's going to be a little sad. But man, what a shockingly good game. What a smart, cool game. Lastly, man, this video is long. Of course, I had to buy this game. I'm a hardcore Zelda fanatic. Had to get Link's Awakening here. Got the Dreamer Edition, which is a disappointment. Europe got such a cool special edition with the Game Boy Steelbook, and we got this one with I think this is like an art book. The art book's cool and all, but that Game Boy Steel book was awesome. Europe got a much better edition than we did. Um, Now, okay, Link's Awakening. I enjoyed this game. Don't get me wrong. I did enjoy this game. I really enjoy the original Link's Awakening. I think that's a classic game. Yeah, it's never been one of my favorite Zelda games, and playing this again has made me realize it's probably never going to be one of my favorite Zelda games, but I have always admired it, and this may be controversial. I think the original game is better than this. I playing this, I'm not so sure this game needed a remake. We'll start with the positive. Yes, the visuals are amazing in this game. I really love like the visuals they have in this game. It looks fantastic. I really love the depth of field effect that this game has. It's got charm for days. It's such a charming game, and it's just it's the frame rate. Okay, one of the negative things I already mentioned. The frame rate is not the greatest. It's especially noticeable kind of moving to new areas when there's a lot of stuff on screen. But the original game is still really enjoyable. I really enjoyed going through this. Most of the dungeons are really fun and surprisingly challenging, especially Eagle's Tower. Like that was a tough dungeon. I got stuck. It was like finding the last pillar that I needed to knock down was just a hassle. Like really, I don't know, maybe a little bit too much backtracking in that dungeon, but I thought it was surprisingly difficult. There's some dated designs of elements of this game that they didn't really touch up really. It's hard to know where to go sometimes. I got stuck multiple times throughout this game, and oftentimes it was something like really stupid. Like one time, I think trying to get to the desert, I just couldn't figure out where to go, and it turns out it was like this one bush that I didn't happen to attack with my sword had like a cave underneath that brought me to the next area. So it's like little things like that I would get stuck at that I'm just like, really? Really? There are some bullshit parts, though, and I'm going to talk about this one bullshit part, and I'll spoil the solution because it's complete fucking bullshit. And apparently in the original game, it's not a problem at all, which is probably why I got stuck at it for so long in this game. I think it's in the 7th or 8th dungeon. I want to say it's the 8th dungeon. There's this room where there's this statue with an eye, and there's like one of the owl statues in it that when you get the beak, he'll tell you a little hint. So his hint is you shoot the statue in the arrow with the eye. It's a very obvious hint. It basically tells you what you need to do. So I'm in this room and I'm shooting an arrow at the eye of the statue. It's hitting the eye and nothing's happening. It gives me the chime when I come in for the compass that a chest is supposed to be in this room. The chest I need. I think I had a small key that I need to progress through the dungeon. I wasted all my arrows. I kept coming back. I left the dungeon. I saved and quit. I did all these things, and it was not working. So of course eventually I just gave up. I was at a complete loss as to what I had to do. Turns out you have to use the Roc's Feather and jump and shoot the arrow. Now, I mean, it might not have been a problem if when you shot the arrow that it missed it and went below the eye, but it clearly hits the eye if you're not jumping. So that to me is fucking bullshit. And the original game, you didn't have to jump to shoot the statue in the eye. You could just stand there and shoot it, and it worked. So that's one of the things they changed for this remake. And so these are the kind of things like that, or I get stuck at, and it's like, that's to me unfair. That's not that's not me not being able to figure out. It's just the game being fucking ridiculous. So I don't know. It was kind of annoying getting stuck in this game to bullshit like that, but the game's still enjoyable, and I really do appreciate that they're doing these top-down Zelda games. I feel like the last one we got was Link Between Worlds, which is a much better game than this, by the way. But it's a type of Zelda game we just don't get that often anymore, and I think there's a lot to appreciate about this type of Zelda game. They tend to be a lot more action-based, and it's just, I don't know, I think they provide a nice contrast to the 3D games. I would really like to see, I don't know about a remake of the Oracle games, but I want to see a new Zelda game in this style, really. But we gotta talk about the things that make me think that the original might be actually the better way to go. I actually prefer the original game. I'll say that now. This remake feels a little unnecessary to me in some ways. So first, the original game is still really fucking good. I went back to it on the 3DS on the eShop, and it still held up beautifully. I think the music is much better in the original. I really don't like what they did with the music in this game. I don't like the instrumentation of it. It's just really dull, and it just, I don't know, the music just doesn't have the the catchiness and the melody that the original soundtrack did. The music just did not leave a lasting impression to me. A lot of the songs are almost unrecognizable compared to the original. I don't know. I much prefer the original soundtrack, even with the the low quality Game Boy sound. I think it was just far more appealing. And then the visuals. Okay, the visuals are better here. I do probably prefer the visuals in this game. It's got a nice art style. But the main thing for me with this is the stuff they added in the remake is, for the most part, terrible, actually. We'll start with the one good thing. So, in the original, you only had, like, your sword was always tied to an attack button, but the B button, you'd have to constantly go into the menu to change. You'd have to change the shield, change the walk feather, change to the rod that shoots fire, change to the bow. You were constantly going to the menu, changing it, and it was a little tedious. And a lot of the old Game Boy Zelda games had this problem. Your sword and shield are always tied to certain buttons, so you've always got the 2 inventory items, so you're never going through the menu that often in this game. That's a playability change that's really good. It's probably the best thing about the remake, honestly. But basically, they've kind of added a few things. Like, there's more seashells to collect in this game, which, I don't know, I didn't go for 100% in this game. I didn't even get all the heart pieces, and I'm going to tell you why. The Dungeon Maker. The Dungeon Maker in this game, it's one of those features they kind of showed off, and I was already a little hesitant about it. It didn't seem very compelling to me, and I was right. It's terrible. It's awful. It's this awful addition to the game that made me not 100% it, because a couple heart pieces and an empty bottle are tied to this mini game. It's fairly substantial. The problem is it's got so many issues. So, first off, it's extremely limited. You do get this option where it's kind of like an open play kind of thing, where you kind of make the dungeon to your liking, but all the rooms in this game are rooms that are used in the dungeons in the main game. So it feels like you're always playing a remix of the different dungeons. When you do there's like certain challenges that you can do, where you kind of make your own dungeon, but you have like certain set rules. They're not fun at all. They're extremely tedious to do. Basically, you have to make your dungeon in such a specific way. It just completely gets rid of any of the freedom that you would have had. And playing through the dungeon is just never that exciting, because it's the same rooms that you're seeing constantly. It's really repetitive. It takes forever to make anything. And it gets really annoying later. When it can take like fucking like 30 minutes to make a dungeon in this, especially like in the third set of challenges. And there's so many of them that you have to do for the 100%. I think the last set of them has like 54 challenges. And the reward, this is no spoilers, the reward is nothing. You don't get anything for it. So it's a complete waste of time. It's just, I don't know, it's not good. It's very limited, and it's not exciting, it's not fun, and it's really tedious. I gave up on it pretty quickly. I was like, oh boy, like this is not a great addition to the game. So 100%ing the original game is far more enjoyable. I can't do it in this one. It's a very short game, and that leads me to probably my other like final complaint with it. It shouldn't be full price. I'm sorry, it shouldn't. It's maybe a little easier to swallow in the US. $59.99 is not like the worst. But $79.99 in Canada is fucking insanity for a Game Boy game. Link Between Worlds is a far more substantial game than this. It feels, it's far more different. I think it's a far more playable game in a lot of ways. And that game, obviously it's a 3DS game, but I mean, it's like way cheaper, especially now. I don't know, for a remake of a Game Boy game, I get that Switch games, are kind of should be full price for the most part, like Breath of the Wild. Like Breath of the Wild compared to this, both $79.99. It's just, I don't know. Usually I don't care about value too much in games. I don't know. I feel like it's just a little much for a Game Boy game. And a lot of these Wii U games shouldn't be $79.99 as well. Like Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, I love that game. Don't get me wrong. It's one of my favorite games ever. It shouldn't be $79. I'm sorry. Nintendo is getting away with robbery here. And it's a little hypocritical in a way, because I still bought the fucking thing. Because Zelda, to me, I just can't not buy a Zelda game. But like, I don't know, it's a little crazy for what this is, what they're charging for it. But Yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I gotta say, I didn't enjoy Link's Awakening as much as I was expecting to, and a lot of the additions they made weren't that great. And honestly, I don't think this game is really in need of a remake. To be honest, like playing it again made me kind of realize that. But I still enjoyed it. I'm not gonna say I didn't enjoy the game. I still had a lot of fun with it. It's a solid like 7 out of 10 type experience, but you can get the original on the eShop on the 3DS for like $10 or something, and honestly, you're probably getting a better experience. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe a controversial. I might be in the minority here. I just as a remake, I just don't think it's particularly successful. Link's Awakening, but anyways, that's it, guys. This video's gone on long enough. What have you guys been playing? For me, my Japan trip's coming up very soon. Actually, I'm leaving like a week from now, so we'll see what maybe I'll do I'll probably do a video actually talking about my experience in Japan. I think that would be a cool video to do. Some pickups that I get there. Obviously, I'm not buying any games in October. There's some stuff I'm interested in. I want to play the Baldur's Gate and Planescape Torment collections on PS4. The ukulele successor actually looks really good. Like, it looks like a really good 2D platformer. I'd like to play that. The Outer Worlds, Obsidian's new game. Hopefully it's good. I'd like to play that, but I gotta kind of like hold off and just save my money for Japan. And then November we've got Death Stranding, which is kind of a day one for me. It's been getting a lot of shit. I gotta say, a lot of people are watching the gameplay and being like, "This looks boring. This looks so fucking weird and just crazy over the top." Okay, maybe I'll get into a little rant here to end the video, but I kind of am a little baffled at the hate and criticism that Death Stranding is receiving. Now, I haven't looked at the gameplay because this is a game I have to go in blind. I've obviously seen a little bits and pieces of it, but the one thing that strikes me about Death Stranding and why I will always be a defender of it, and maybe it's not going to be a great game. Maybe Death Stranding won't be, maybe it will be a boring game. But what Death Stranding is, from what I've seen, and it's an interesting game. It's weird. It's unique. It's crazy. It's different from like anything I've seen, and a lot of things in this current like landscape as far as gaming goes. And Kojima's always been pretty good with that. He's always created these weird experiences. Metal Gear Solid 5 maybe was not as much, but that's because a lot of like the meddling that was going on. Obviously that game had a very troubled development. So it's I don't know. To me, I'm kind of a bit of a defender of this game because we need more games like this. I'm sorry. In an industry where everything looks the same, everything plays the same, where Ubisoft makes the same fucking game every year, where just everything is the same shit we see. Everything has like these half-baked RPG elements thrown in for no reason. Everything's a loot shooter. Everything's Minecraft or open world survival game with crafting elements. We need more games that are weird and crazy and funny. And that's why Deadly Premonition 2 is so exciting for me. And Death Stranding looks just nuts. It looks bonkers, and I think I don't know. And why is that so horrible to people? Like, do we really want this industry to just be it's just the same shit regurgitated constantly over and over again? And when finally this game comes out, I mean, it's big budget, like a AAA game, but it's weird as fuck, and it's odd, and it's crazy. I'm excited for it. I am excited for it. Maybe it's not going to be the best game, but it's an interesting game. It's doing things differently. And I admire that so goddamn much. More games need to be fucking weird. That's my rant. Anyways, I'm a little tired of the Death Stranding hate. It's a little ridiculous. Yeah, I'm super excited for that game. That's it, guys. Sorry for the little rant there. What have you guys been playing? What are you looking forward to? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.